In this session, we have the pleasure to meet Dr. Georgios Liakopoulos, a historian-Ottomanist, a researcher in the Max Planck Institute of Geoanthropology. Georgios, thank you for accepting our invitation. You are an historian, let's say a traditional historian with an international impact. And for many, many years, you have been using a geographical information system for your studies and research purposes. Could you tell us the road you followed and what necessitated the use of GIS in your field of expertise?
Dear Maria, thank you very much for inviting me and for having me in this introductory session. So let me start with saying that I am an Ottomanist, so I study Ottoman history. My first adventure with GIS was during my postgraduate years, during my master's, where I attempted to visualize the spatial aspect of Ottoman military campaigns in the Balkans. Then I moved to a different kind of historical primary sources, that is the taxation cadastres of the Ottoman period, where I started exploring historical geography and toponymy. This is place onomastics, economic history, and historical demography.
Could you give us an example of your project using GIS, Georgios?
Yes, by all means. If you can allow me to share my screen, I have a couple of slides I would like to show.
Thank you.
Am I good? Can you see me?
Yes.
Great. So here I'm giving you an example of the Ottoman taxation cadastres. This particular manuscript pertains to the Peloponnese. The Peloponnese is the southernmost part of mainland Greece, and it was compiled in the mid-15th century. So a typical entry in such a detailed cadastre gives us a number of data that could be grouped under three main categories. We have geodata, like the names of villages or districts, demographic data, like figures of households, bachelors, and widows, and finally we have a number of financial data, that is the revenue each village ought to pay every year, and then its breakdown into each crops tax or other taxable activities. So when we gathered all this data that we acquired from these primary sources, we created maps that showed different distributions, like the demographic one and the economic one. In that way, we attempted to examine the settlement patterns in this specific district, and this could only be made possible by using GIS tools. In our current project at the Max Planck Institute of Geoanthropology in Jena, we are examining environmental history, so to say, how the collation of historical and natural archives helps us in order to assess the human pressure on the environment of the past. In order to delimit our study area, we had to make sure that we were able to assess the concentration of identified localities in this first cadastre of the Peloponnese, something you can see in this map, and then by adding the paleo-environmental and the climatic proxies for each locality, to choose which area we should focus on. And we chose, as you can probably understand by this map, the area of the northwestern Peloponnese. Now, in an attempt to understand the differences in cultivation orientation of two ethnic groups that were present in the Peloponnese of that period, we used GIS to produce thematic maps. There we combined the data we had from our historical sources with land morphological and climatic factors. In that way, we enriched our database with new variables, that is, sediment types, precipitation zones, altitude, and distance from running water. In that way, we took a new database with those new variables, and on them we applied geostatistical models which revealed which factors were more influential. So in that way, so to say, from raw data, we made a step further into information. And this helped us in addressing questions starting with why, this is what historians ask, and how, this is what sociologists ask.
Very, very interesting. Giorgio, could you tell us what difficulties did you meet with this tool? I mean, using GIS.
Yes, as we said before, I originate from the humanities, so working with GIS was a brand new environment for me. But after learning how to use and populate attribute tables, actually what remains is just painting. And this is the happiest part of our work. This is where I show my enthusiasm. However, we should keep in mind that there are certain pitfalls with using GIS and with mapping in general. We should remain vigilant against determinism, both in geography and in cartography. A map, as an image, possesses the quality of a direct stimulus. So we should be very careful of what we choose to depict in our maps if we don't want to end up in false conclusions. There were certain difficulties. In our group, we have scholars that come from humanities, from IT or natural sciences. So we needed to establish a common ground in communicating among one another. And let me just add that life has always been complex. Now, in the past, I presume this in the future as well. Interdisciplinarity furnishes us with a more effective way, it is a tool actually, to cast light on different aspects of the same reality. And allow me to add one more phrase. As a historian and as a person who uses GIS, this fantastic tool for historians, time and space should be examined together.
Georgios, thank you very much for your time and the first introductory lesson in Minerva project. And I wish you success in your scientific endeavors. Thank you very much.
Anytime, Maria. I thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.